believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two f***s, but I am telling you right now, that back there is not real.
Me, it look like a leprechaun to me. All I gotta do is look up in the tree. Who else sees a leprechaun? Say yeah!
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
Before, the Tic Tac type UFO was flying at such speed there that it barely was able to stay on their radar. They didn't get a chance to shoot it down yet.
It's all shifty lawyer talk. I mean, this is like lawyers have scripted this shit. It's just so shifty how the words they use, the language and all this sort of stuff. It's so calculated, and it's war propaganda.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of The Theorists. I'm Tim Wilms.
And I'm Andy Nolch, and I'm ready for a good night of covering a lot of topics. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about.
You're not in your studio. You look like you're in your bedroom and your sheets are not made.
Yep. Basically, long story.
Well, let's get straight into it. And there is breaking bombshell news tonight. And that is that the Obama's chef, his name is Tafari Campbell. He was with the Obamas when they were in the White House, and then he became their personal chef post the presidency. He was found dead, floating near the Obama family's lakeside mansion at Martha's Vineyard, which is an island off Massachusetts. It's a lot of where these rich people have holiday homes, and this is quite extraordinary given that he did learn to be quite a competent swimmer.
Yeah, and we'll wait and see what happens if there's more to this story, if it's a bit like the Clinton body count or something like that. We don't know. I want to quickly mention something, Tim. On last week's show, when we showed the video by that guy who was a Freemason who was talking about the chick on the plane who got upset by seeing a reptilian or something, that guy actually wasn't the guy on the plane. He was just doing that to get more viewers, and it was a bit of a troll. So that was false information we accidentally played by having that guy. But his video was still pretty interesting anyway. But I just wanted to clear that up.
So a false flag. So we don't know who the actual well, she said he was not real, so maybe he was actually not real.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know any. Look, I don't even think that. I think the whole thing's silly. Like, I mean, where's the video of her following up after whatever she did? The whole thing is. I'm not interested in the whole thing, to be honest. Are you still there, Tim? Oh, it's frozen now. Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, I guess I'll talk if people can hear it.
Our internet's not best here tonight.
Yeah. So about this Obama thing, who knows?
Why would the Obamas say, like, why would they because there's a lot of chatter that they didn't suicide him, but they drowned him. He drowned suddenly.
Yeah, mate. Well, we'll see. But I mean, imagine working in the Obama household. You know a lot of secrets. I mean, Obama is a CIA president. He's basically a CIA agent, being a president. I know a lot of people think that CIA agents are like James Bond and are like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. And there are agents that do those specific roles, but there are agents that are chefs, there are agents that are computer science guys, there are agents that are scientists, that are psychiatrists, that are politicians. And Obama, the Obamas are a CIA family. And so that chef could know some deep secrets, secrets that you have to kill to keep secret. Who knows?
Maybe he saw a big black sausage that was down by the lakeside that he wasn't supposed to see. Obviously, there is a big secret which many people believe the Obamas are hiding, and that is that the former First Lady Michelle Obama is actually, well, I'll play the footage of what Barack Obama let slip one time.
Michael and I also want to acknowledge Michael and I
Yes, there is this conspiracy theory that Michelle Obama is a man and is actually Michael Obama. Alex Jones, a founder of Infowars.com, he was one of the most vocal believers in this conspiracy theory. He didn't claim that it was his conspiracy theory. There'd been YouTube videos online for years until they were all of a suddenly mysteriously cleared up in 2016. But there have been videos of her appearance on the Ellen program where there's this strange bulge. Her shoulders are quite wide for a woman's. Here's a comparison between Michelle Obama's back and Mike Tyson's. And this meme is going around. How bad is it? The chef saw you had a dick. What do you reckon that the chef the chef was he was made a meal of because of a sausage that he saw?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, but I think they had a divorce, so I don't know what's going on with the Obamas. But when you know how the CIA operate and stuff, like, you know how fake they are, and if they've got, like, I mean, the CIA had Jim Jones as an agent, basically, and he was pretending to be a socialist Christian leading some cult, and like, the person's whole life is fake, and their name is possibly fake, and their whole history has been modified, so you can't trust anything, like their gender even. So, you know, it's not, when you know what's really going on, then you're not as surprised that Michelle could actually be Michael.
And a lot of people believe that the late great female comedian Joan Rivers, probably the funniest woman of all time, just only, I think it was a month before she died suddenly, she said this at a doorstop.
Miss Rivers, how are you? You made a ton of news officiating the wedding in New York yesterday. Is this like a new cottage career move for you?
I am so excited.
Okay.
And I should do very well because I don't charge.
And do you think that the country will see the United States will see the first gay president or the first woman president?
We already have it with Obama, so let's just calm down.
Got it.
You know Michelle is a
I'm sorry, she's a what?
A transgender. We all know.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh. It's okay. She does this.
Now to Joan Rivers. The comedy icon rushed to a hospital here in New York City on Thursday after she reportedly stopped breathing during a procedure on her vocal cords. This morning, her daughter Melissa is asking for prayers, and ABC's Lindsay Davis is out Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan with the very latest on this. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Lara. Joan Rivers remains here at Mount Sinai Hospital this morning. She is said to be resting comfortably. This morning, legendary comedian and television icon Joan Rivers remains in the hospital. Authorities tell ABC News Rivers was rushed to Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City after going into cardiac arrest at a New York medical clinic. TMZ reporting Rivers was having a procedure involving her vocal cords at the clinic. Just hours earlier, the Emmy-winning, Tony-nominated star had entertained crowds at a Manhattan theater. Audience members telling ABC News she was as vibrant as ever. Rivers also made the rounds to promote her latest book. Diary of a Mad Diva debuted this summer at number 7 on the New York Times bestseller list. And she had no plans of slowing down, with 26 appearances scheduled between now and November 22nd. A woman with endless energy and drive.
The headline that broke this afternoon, we learned Joan Rivers, a queen of comedy, has died at the age of 81 after going into cardiac arrest a week ago. Tonight, an investigation into the procedure that led to this, just as tributes pour in from fellow comedians and her fans.
You know Michelle is a
I'm sorry, she's a what?
a transgender. We all know.
Do you think Joan Rivers was making a joke, or she sounded serious there?
That sounds really serious. And do you know what it sounds like? When people are going, because she's had a lot of plastic surgery and stuff like that. If she was left to look natural, she would look much more like an old lady. Old people talk like that. Like something happens in their brain. I saw it happen with my grandma. They suddenly start becoming funny and casual, and they stop being polite and stuff like that. Now, the old Joan Rivers, maybe 10 years ago, she would not say things like that publicly because she knows not to. But the starting to go senile Joan Rivers will just come out and just say it. That's why she's like, it's okay, don't worry. That's old people act exactly like that when they start going senile. So they start saying things that are inappropriate and it sounds funny. So I reckon she actually slipped up and just was senile and actually said the truth.
Well, on Fox News, Jesse Walters informed the Boomer viewers that Tafari Campbell was not the first White House chef to drown suddenly.
State and local police are still conducting an investigation into Tafari's death, and our hearts go out to Tafari's family and to the Obamas, and Primetime will keep you updated. Now, in a tragically strange coincidence, Tafari is not the only presidential chef to drown. Clinton's chef also drowned.
So that was back in 2015, and this was the CNN story at the time.
Now know how Walter Scheib died. His body was found Sunday night just off the Yerba Canyon trailhead in very rugged terrain. New Mexico State Police say after an autopsy, the medical investigator reports Scheib drowned, and his death is officially an accident. Scheib moved to Taos in March. A friend told our partners at the Journal he may have been trying to be closer to his girlfriend. He previously worked as a chef in the White House, first under Bill Clinton, and stayed on when George W. Bush took over. Last night, President Clinton released a statement reading in part, "Hillary and I are saddened by the tragic passing of former White House executive chef Walter Scheib. Our family was grateful to have Walter with us in the White House for 6 years, where we and visitors from around the world loved his delicious and creative meals." And former First Lady Laura Bush added, "President Bush and I are saddened by the tragic death of former White House executive chef Walter Scheib. Walter was an outstanding talent. He prepared magnificent dinners for world leaders and delicious fare for our family and friends. George and I send our heartfelt sympathy to Walter's loved ones. He was also involved in multiple charities, appeared on Iron Chef, started his own corporation, and wrote a book."
The chefs who knew too much. Now, they weren't suicided. It wasn't 2 bullets to the back of the head, but yeah, they both drowned. Like, how come they have died suddenly in both the exact same circumstances, do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, something shifty is going on. I mean, there's lots of suicidings that occur. It's a convenient way.
Oh,
and there's also
drownings.
Yeah, and there's a lot of what's the word? Drug overdoses as well, and they're happening too frequent. You know what I mean? These drownings or suicidings, and it's just all things are going on. Basically, but let's get into the weather, Tim. Apparently, for the past 22 days, it's been the hottest weather for the every day in the past 22 days in the world history.
Yeah, I'm getting all of the media news alerts so that it's the global warming frying is already here, and that it's come sooner than we expected. Now it is still bloody cold here in Melbourne, so I wish I was at at these really warm places. But apparently all of Europe is on fire at the moment.
Yeah, it's completely sus. Firstly, I don't believe them when they say it's been this record hot stuff. It just sounds ridiculous, and from all my travels, it doesn't seem to be getting hotter. And this is from numerous locations all around the world. I mean, consistently in many locations, it's been below average. Um, but also, I mean, you're just hearing it from ABC in Australia. You're just hearing it from ABC News in America. Like, why aren't we hearing it from Russian news? Why aren't they saying the same thing? You know,
You
'cause
are hearing it from the BBC, Sky News UK, which is owned by NBC Universal, The Guardian. I mean, all of the Western
all
mainstream
of the
media.
Western, exactly, the all who are controlled by the New World Order in the West. It's sus. But what they could really be doing is starting these fires basically with their weather technology, and
Well,
that's why.
the one over in Greece, over in that Greek island of Rhodes, that was arson. So literally, it was a weather phenomenon that was man or woman made, depending on who the
Exactly.
arsonist
They're
is.
they're creating possibly the arsonist epidemic because we're having it here as well. I saw something that was talking about the hot weather in Greece, and Greece is always hot in summer. That's like normal to be 40 degrees for numerous days in
That's
a
why
row.
people go to the Greek islands.
Exactly, but they could be making it windier than usual, which really flares up the fires. And also their chemical sprays, when it lands on the ground, it makes it easier to light things up. I saw something that was showing Death Valley in California, which is one of the hottest locations in the world. Um, and when they showed it in the mainstream news, they again mentioned a temperature that isn't that unusual for that part of the world. It's one of the hottest places in the world. But also,
Yeah.
I noticed that I could see you could see the clouds and everything, and it was windy as well. And I was like, yeah, of course, because whenever it seems to be that they're tinkering with the weather, you'll notice that it's like half cloudy day, like it's got these wispy clouds in the sky. It's not clear blue sky, and it's also windy. If you notice in Melbourne in the past 5 years, whenever we've had these 40-degree days, which we have had much
We've
less than
hardly had any
usual.
40-degree
I
days.
I know, but whenever we get these bigger days, you'll see that it'll be overcast and it'll be windy. Whereas when we were kids and it got to like 41, it'll be clear blue skies and it wasn't windy. And you can. I'm starting to monitor how they work the weather, and they're pushing things around, and then you get another location that's like 1,000 kilometers away and they're getting record rain, right? Like in America where they're having some hot weather, in New York area you'll have record rain going on, and that's because they're pushing air into unusual areas, and it creates a crazy problem where one area has heaps of rain that it's not supposed to have because the other area you pushed hot air into it and made some record heat. It's all very shifty what they're doing. But if you want to see a
Well,
really
I
good
don't
interview,
believe that
well,
governments can control the weather. I
well, hold on.
believe that they manipulate measurements.
Yeah, well, if you want to see a really good interview, maybe you've already seen it, but with Robert F. Kennedy, he's done an interview with Dane Wigington about the weather stuff. And it's a really good interview, and it's a good introduction to the whole topic. So check that out. I shared it on my Telegram channel.
And it will be published on The Unshackled as well, the link to that interview. But it is common knowledge that the various government weather bureaus, they measure temperatures on airport tarmacs, where obviously jet fuel is extremely hot. I mean, and how can they measure what the temperature was 10,000, 20,000 years ago since the Earth began? I mean, it's only the hottest temperature that they've recorded.
It's all completely, you know, there's something going on big time with it. And I actually really think that it's getting colder across the whole planet. And
It's definitely colder here.
yeah, on average, I mean, like I mean, you've seen in the past few years, we've had cold weather in the first 2 weeks of December. Like that was never a case when we were kids, you know. So it's
Well,
interesting.
a few of our commenters, paleo conservatives, try the 2019 bushfires were a mixture of arson and not being allowed to blackburn. I remember 2019, early December, it was snowing in southern New South Wales.
Yeah, it's
And then
epic.
all of a
And then
sudden, the sky was full of smoke.
yeah, and then remember how when all those big bushfires in Australia were occurring, and we've got Max Egan who started saying, there's something sus going on, and started talking about it online and spreading the idea that these fires were lit by the government. And then he has this episode where he's like zapped by some energy at night time, and it messes with his mind and it sent him crazy. And it's like that to me indicates that they wanted to silence him, that he was becoming a problem and
Well,
stepping
what
out of the
was
line.
I'm not sure if it was his conspiracy, but there was plenty of conspiracy theories that the 2019, 2020 bushfires, they were all mysteriously along this path that the Australian government has plans to build a high-speed rail.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. So imagine if an event occurred, let's say there was some stabbing that happened in a month's time, and then you instantly started pumping out all these lies saying it was like a purple octopus who caused that stabbing, right? I guarantee you the government won't come after you. Okay? But when you actually hit on the truth and the true conspiracy, then they have to start silencing you. So that's what I think happened with Max Egan. They actually he was becoming a problem because he was really spreading this idea, encouraging people to think, hold on a second, there's weather wars going on.
We might get to a time with the theorists where we begin to have guests. Maybe Max Egan would be a perfect theorist guest if we ever decide to go down that road, because you and I have both interviewed him. You actually caught up with him in Mexico, where there's a lot of Australian, well, they're not expats, but refugees from the lockdown tyranny.
Yeah, there was back then during the during the lockdowns and stuff. Definitely, I was sort of one of them. And it was just so interesting talking to him because he got basically affected by remote mind control technology. So remote means distance, in case you don't know. So it's like somebody, because you can have mind control where someone walks into a room and jabs you with drugs and does some crazy shit to your mind, but you can do this apparently remotely. You can mess with a person's mind while they're sitting in some government secret facility, and they can shoot beams, basically like the conspiracy theory stereotype with a tinfoil hat. Literally, they can actually do something remotely, and Max Egan is the real deal. And they did something. They implanted him. Is actually the word to use. And I actually shared something really interesting recently about implanting by reptilians. And it's some psychic data, and it's very deep, and it's not really current news topic, but it's some deep truth about the human population here on Earth and how reptilian aliens basically implant us and control the whole civilization. And they basically are God. They're our gods, basically, because they manipulate and control our society. And in the data, they're setting up basically a 1984 situation. So it's coming from them. Yeah, but if you want to see that video, it's on my Telegram, I think. Oh, it's on my BitChute, definitely.
There's also the theory that UFOs and aliens, they're attracted to areas of Earth with extreme heat, like where there are nuclear weapons. And tomorrow, or US time, there's going to be what is it? They're now called unidentified anomalous phenomena. So this is the House Oversight Committee. It's interesting that the deep state, even though, like, say what you want about the current congressmen and women, but they are the most dogged, both Republican and Democrats, of trying to get the truth from the deep state about UFOs. The Air Force, NASA, they are preventing the elected members of Congress from viewing what they have.
Yep. I don't have much to say about that, Tim.
Why are you worried that you might you might be killed?
No, I mean, people. There are people out there who are trying to get disclosure of the whole thing occurring, which is great. There's also the plan within the government to slowly wake us up to the whole thing about aliens. And when they do wake us up to it, it's going to be in a deceptive way. They're not going to tell us the full truth about it, but they're going to at least let us know that there are other guys out there. And yeah, it just doesn't. The topic doesn't massively interest me that much at the moment.
It doesn't. Is that because there is so much now information overload now? Because this is, I noticed Paul Joseph Watson. He doesn't believe that the government is now telling the truth about UFOs, UAP, because it's coming from the government. But
yeah, well, they're probably not
you
telling the truth right now because they're probably talking about their own craft that they've built that they're flying around. So that's why they're so shifty. You know, they're probably not telling the truth right now. You know,
well, David Koresh, who's the whistleblower from the U.S. State Department, who he hasn't actually provided any proof. He's just because the information's classified, it's all hearsay. Now he was interviewed by Australian journalist Ross Coulthart on News Nation, which is a new US cable channel, and they seem to try and get ratings and attention, seem to be focusing on the UFO phenomena to get eyeballs. This is what he told Ross Coulthart.
Have people been killed to protect this secret?
Based on the people I talked to, that was an ongoing concern. Yeah, unfortunately, I've heard some really un-American things I don't want to repeat right now.
So you have a strong suspicion that people have been murdered to protect this secret?
Over the years, yeah.
Do you think that the US government, rather than killing people, have the Men in Black memory technology from those Will Smith movies?
You know what? They absolutely I believe they absolutely do. I mean, we're so far in the future, but back in the 60s, they could the CIA and stuff could take someone and wipe their memory and put false memories into them, and also program a person to go and do a shooting. I'm reading a book at the moment called
Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, I'm reading a book at the moment called Chaos, because it's very interesting. And Manson was having this top psychiatrist called Jolly West visit him, and this Jolly West guy had also visited Ruby. What's that guy's name from the Kennedy shooting? Jack Ruby.
He's the one that shot Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yes, yeah, because he was so upset about the president getting shot. And all these people
that's that's the other thing that the US deep state won't release to the Congress, members of Congress. It's UFOs and the JFK assassination.
Yeah, and so this psychiatrist visited Ruby because I think they wanted him to appear insane so that then it could stuff up the court case, and because it was a kangaroo court basically. And so after this psychiatrist had spent some time with him, he actually went insane, and he was babbling stuff or something like that, and so he was no longer able to be used. So they've got this sort of technology. They've had it since the 60s, and I think that they've evolved it to a point where it's like the Men in Black movie, And that Men in Black movie is whistleblowing on so much truth about what's actually going on. It just seems all silly, but there's a lot of truth in that movie. When you know the ufology subject and you watch the movie, you can see it's got all these little things planted in it.
In the chat, Lady of Charlotte has mentioned that RFK's assassin Saran Saran, who at the time claimed that he assassinated Robert F. Kennedy because he was a supporter of Israel, and Saran was a Arab Palestinian, but RFK Jr. He because Saran has recanted now, said that he was under mind control, and it also looks like there was a second assassin, a second shooter.
Yeah, it would have been
Same
the Saran would have been set up as the patsy, and he would have had his mind control in place, so that he thought that he'd actually done it, or that he goes into some sort of zombie mode or something, and then just pulls out the gun, and then an actual trained assassin CIA agent who's in the room at the time does the shooting, and then everyone just turns to Saran. He gets blamed for it. And I think, is he still in jail? Like they're not letting him out because
he's still alive.
Exactly, they're not letting him out because they don't want. He'll possibly be protesting the CIA or something like that.
Now let's finish off with there has been the death of a so-called sovereign citizen after a siege in Lithgow on the Blue Mountains. So this was from the Sydney Morning Herald. Police suspect a man who fired a gun at heavily armed police before turning the weapon on himself near a siege in Lithgow was linked to the sovereign citizen conspiracy theorist because he had a Eureka flag and a Gardasan flag, "Don't tread on me." So some nosy neighbor called the police because of concerns about a man and woman fighting at home. So the pair argued briefly with police before going back inside, and then the officers realized the man was wanted on domestic violence and gun allegations dating back to 2021, so very recent. And then so the heavily armored New South Wales police squad arrived and negotiators called in to de-escalate the situation. Like, if you wanted to de-escalate a situation, why would you basically get every member of the SWAT team around a suburban property?
Yeah, this is sus. And what I find interesting is that when they want something to be a big propaganda event, they pump it up. Now, this event isn't a propaganda event. It's just bullying by the government or bad behavior by the government on sovereign citizens. But you can tell they're not using it as like a false flag attack or something like that. But the one with the train, what?
It seems like they're saying, oh well, he was basically as a pre-defense that the police they escalated this, and now there's a man dead. They're basically saying, well, he was a crazy sovereign citizen, so he was trouble.
Yeah, but this isn't a big propaganda thing. When they want to change our minds, they pump it in all these different areas. Like if some lady dies in the park, they make sure everyone finds out about it, even though ladies die in the park all the time. You know what I mean? So with this train shooting in Queensland, they really pumped that around because they were using it for an agenda. This event that occurred, you can tell, is just a natural thing that occurred that is in the news, and it isn't some brainwashing event, okay? But there is still a little bit of brainwashing in it, like all things in the news, where they're saying, oh, it's a sovereign citizen, blah, blah, blah. But it looks like it's bad behavior by the government because they keep on picking on sovereign citizens because sovereign citizens are going against their system. Tim, can I mention a few things before we end the show? Because I've got a few interesting things to mention.
What are they?
Well, the Q shaman is out of jail. I mean, I think it happened a few weeks ago, but he did a really interesting interview that I recommend listening to. I think I shared it on my channel.
Yes, Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire, who's like they're completely different people because yeah, Q shaman like shamanism, it's some Native American religion, and of course Knowles is basically a theocrat Catholic.
Yeah, so that was really interesting, and yeah, he's into like funky stuff, the Q shaman guy, and also he still believes in the QAnon stuff. But from listening to his interview, he still he doesn't he in the interview he says that QAnon's a psyop, but he doesn't say that it's. He says the word psyop, and I
Yeah,
would say it's a
I
psyop
found it
as
hard to
well.
follow.
Yeah, but I would say, yeah, it's a psyop, but it's designed to trick all of its followers. But he goes, no, it's a psyop, as in it's designed to change the minds of people and make them for the better. And I'm saying, no, it's designed to, as a psyop by the CIA, to confuse all the conspiracy theorists and get them into silly stuff that isn't actually the truth. And so he's still a believer in it, which is funny because he hasn't got the full thing about it. Like it's just these psyops are just funny. I mean, it started with them doing stuff like Flat Earth and Pizzagate and stuff to mislead like Alex Jones fans and stuff like that, and the UFO community as well. And now it's like even if you tell them that it's a psyop, they're like, yeah, we agree it's a psyop. But that's like, no, you don't get what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that it's putting data in there to confuse you and mislead you and make you study things and follow some path and stuff, and it's all a silly game. And the next thing, but it's a really interesting interview listening to him because that's like listening to him, you get an
For
idea.
2 hours.
Yeah,
So
it's long,
if you've
but you
got
get
a
an
long
idea of what.
drive,
Yeah, you get an idea of
yeah.
what QAnon people believe in. Um, and the next thing I want to say is that this is just quick, but I love Texas a lot, and the Texas governor has put up this barrier to stop the immigrants from coming across. And the U.S. government, the federal government, is suing them and trying to attack them. And the Texas is saying like, "Stuff you! We're trying to protect our
Yeah,
border."
this
So I love
is
that.
like yeah, this is extraordinary that the Biden administration that yeah they obviously went all out against Trump's border wall, and I think Nancy Pelosi she defended basically mass immigration, saying, "Oh, we need people to pick the fruit." So instead of pick the cotton, it's pick the fruit. And now Georgia Maloney is saying that Italy needs immigrants now. She's basically a turncoat now. She's betrayed the
Oh.
Italian people.
Wow, yeah. Well, I'd like her to walk around Florence in Italy at
Well,
11 p.m.
Italy
at
has
night.
got a a really low birth rate.
Yeah, I know what you're
Like,
saying, but I mean, if you're
by
going to do it, you have to
population.
do it. You have to do the legal immigration, and you have to be selective. I mean, you could have criminals coming across, but I'd like her to walk around at 11 p.m. at night in Florence and see if certain drunk people come up to her and just be annoying and just ruin the classy experience of Italy because they've just been flooding the place. It's just ridiculous. You know what I mean?
And
It's
she's
like,
also
does she
for
lock the
a
doors of her house? You know what I mean?
she's also for the forever Ukraine war.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I mean, Switzerland and Italy are getting flooded the same as what we are because the same people are in power, and it's just a disgrace. And
How come
Texas,
the illegal immigrants still wanna go to Europe when it's on fire?
yeah, I don't know. But I mean, it was shocking when I was in Switzerland and there was all these black prostitutes around and stuff. Like I was in the poor part of town, but I was like, "What's going on? Like this is just crazy." Because even in the poor parts of America, you don't see all these black prostitutes. So I don't know what was going on in Switzerland. Um, but I mean, imagine you at the border at one of these car crossings in America. Imagine if you just walked across. I mean, you would get arrested. You'll get labeled a criminal straight away. But somehow you can get away with it when you're at some river in the middle of nowhere in Texas. You can get away with running, you know. So it's outrageous. It's actually the whole thing's a CIA operation. And I know I keep on bringing them up, but it's the world government's intelligence agency who's decided to open up the borders, and they run the mafia the same as the drugs and all that, and they're bringing them all in across. And it's all Alex Jones knows about it. He documents it well. It's all these NGOs and stuff. They're bringing them across the border, and that's why they're coming across. You know, they're pulling them from the areas below Mexico across Mexico and bringing them in and pulling them across, making it happen. These mafia.
Even though you've been to both Mexico and the US, which is a better place to live?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, I do like Texas because politics and stuff like that. But there's nothing wrong with Mexico. Like
I
a
think
lot of
it just
people are
doesn't
moving
have
there.
a welfare state.
Yeah, probably, and they don't have some NGO person saying, "Oh, come on, we'll bust you in across, and we'll give you phones and other stuff that they're giving." Um, it's all a covert operation. So anyway, we know what's going on though. But the last thing I want to mention is how Israel's having super big protests at the moment because uh, is it Netanyahu who's in charge of Israel?
Yeah, he's back as prime minister, passing a new law which limits the ability of the judiciary to strike down government enacted laws that have passed the Knesset, its
Yeah.
parliament. And there's a former Israeli prime minister who is warning that there could be a civil war, which I'm not convinced by, because they basically told us that France was going to have a civil war a few weeks back with those race riots, but it's all calmed down now.
Yeah, well, what he's doing, Netanyahu, is he's changing the government so there's more power for the people. It's more power to the people who they elect. Those scummy people in the politics and stuff, the politicians, more power goes to them, and it goes away from the unelected judges and stuff who are like their own little in club and stuff. So if you want more power to the people, if you're a leftist who's into democracy and you think it all works and elections aren't rigged, right? You don't want to have more power for the judges. You want more power to your guys who were in parliament. And that's what they're doing. Yet all these leftists, and a lot of them are like just young, silly leftists who don't understand what's going on. They're just brainwashed. They're protesting in Israel. And when I was in
And there's
Israel,
all of these in those crowds of protests, there are all of these random rainbow flags, which makes me sus. Like, who's behind it? It's like those color revolutions in the former Soviet republics. They all of a sudden they have EU flags that they've just had lying around.
yeah, well, they've been brainwashed into thinking the right wingness is bad, and the media there and stuff is telling them Netanyahu's right wing, and he probably is, right? But the thing is that he's just been painted as this Trump guy. So of course all the lefties come out of the closets and go, "Oh, he's right wing." And I remember I spoke to a chick when I was in Israel, it was literally when it wasn't at the exact same time. It was like a week after all those protests were going on, like a few months ago, which were the biggest ever. And I think now maybe they're the biggest ever, but they're the biggest possibly ever in Israeli's history, both of them. And I remember asking a chick, and she was like, typical young Israeli lefty, and just brainwashed by the system and stuff. And I was like, "Why are you going and stuff?" And she was like, "Oh, because he's right wing and yeah, he's bad." And I quit, and I'm like, "What does he do though?" And like they don't even really know why they're going. They're just going because their friends are going. It's like it's just fashionable to go to these protests and stuff like that. So they don't even really have a reason. Like that's why they're going to protect democracy, even though the changes it is making are actually better for democracy. Like it doesn't make any sense because they're just going because their friends are going and it's just a cool thing to do. It's like going to Woodstock or something. Like it's just the whole thing's ridiculous. But the truth about behind it is that Israel for very long has been very connected to America. There's a strong connection. They're almost, you could say, the same country, kind of like here. But something has happened where Russia or China or both has gained a foothold in Israel, and America is unhappy. And I believe the CIA is in there in America, and they're stirring up protests. They're stirring up, this anti-Netanyahu movement, and they possibly are wanting their judges to have more power, so that then less power goes to Netanyahu. So basically, this is a symptom of the Russia versus America war, basically. And its CIA is stirring it up. And it's fascinating to see because they stirred it up with the riots against Trump in their own country. And now they're stirring it up in Israel against Netanyahu. it's so interesting seeing what's actually going on. But that's I honestly think that's really the truth behind it, because there's big backing for these protests. And I know from seeing the COVID protests is that it's really hard to get protests popular and going. Usually, like with the Black Lives Matter ones and stuff like that, you need to have backing from the system in order to get these big protests. I mean, with the ones a few months ago in Israel, the corporations were giving people a day off from work to go and protest, like corporations like McDonald's and stuff like that. So they're all in on it. It's a new world order making protests happen in Israel because they don't want Israel going to Russia, basically.
And Benjamin Netanyahu, after his heart surgery, he's now been fitted with a pacemaker, and they can be hacked. They're in the second season of Homeland, which is a US thriller drama program. The vice president of the United States is assassinated when an Islamist terrorist hacks into his pacemaker and makes him have a heart attack and die. Do you think that's? I wonder what this putting a medical device in the Israeli prime minister, who's always a target. I mean, what do you think?
Well, when I heard that he was getting medical treatment today or yesterday or whatever, my instant thought was, okay, this is interesting. You know what I mean? This is a bit. They've got technology. You know what I mean? And it's sus. It like we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just interesting seeing what's going on in the world. There's so many covert operations, and I don't know if people know what the word covert means. I mean, I had to look these things up in the dictionary for years. I've studied a lot of things, read a lot of things. Covert means secret. There's a lot of secret government operations. There's a whole secret government department, which is CIA and ASIO and Russian intelligence and Chinese intelligence and all that. And they're always doing things and they're always tricking people, basically.
Going back to the hot weather climate alarmism, Anthony Albanese has said that climate change is a national security issue as we enter bushfire season, but he said we can't defy science. So he's basically buttering us up for some sort of emergency during summer. And Victoria has those state of disaster laws where they can seize your property during a bushfire if need be.
Wow. Yeah, I want to make a prediction. I've already, I think, posted this online, but they tend to let us know what's coming. Like when we were having all those floods last year, they gave us a strong warning, and I was like, oh no, what are they going to do? And then, yeah, all these floods came and they didn't let the dams out. So that made it all worse and stuff. And then I thought, well, now that we had all this rain, all this stuff has grown. So when that stuff goes dry, that will be perfect conditions to start all these bushfires. And I was suspicious that they would go from 1 year, lots of rain, next year not, and dry. So this summer, I really do predict that they're going to make it dry. They're going to stop it from raining, and they're going to light a bunch of bushfires, and they're going to do what they're doing to Greece right now to us. And they're going to say, oh my God, it's climate change.
Yes, it's much worse than we suspected. That it's here now. The planet is frying, even though like any farming expert will be able to tell you that crop yields are greater when it's warm. I mean, we've got more food now than we did before. We'll have the ability to grow food.
Well, if they didn't make it rain in the last half of last year, right, we would have had fantastic crops, but they made it flood like hell right at the time that was worse for farmers, and that put food prices up and everything, and created a lot of problems. Because it seems like in this new world that we have, and I don't know if they've made it like this or if it's just naturally being like this, in general there's just more rain. And in a place like Victoria, we needed more rain. And so we get plenty more rain and helps the farms and all that stuff. It doesn't lead to these crazy flooding rains. Okay, that's a whole nother ball game. That's a crazy weather event that they're making occur. So they're just stuffing things up.
Oh, well, we'll be here we'll be able to rewind on our predictions. But yeah, I hope that it is warm this summer. That I certainly won't be won't be afraid of the heat. But that's the end of the
Well,
theorists
hold on.
for
Can I
the.
quickly cut in, Tim? Can I go really far? Because I'm serious. I'm like a real nerd with this sort of stuff.
All
I
right.
don't think it's going to be consistently a hot summer. I just think they're going to have it a period of 4 weeks where they stop it from raining or something like that, and then they just make a lot of wind. So we're not going to. I don't think we're going to have a 40-degree day or a 44-degree day. I honestly think we're going to have a bunch of like 38, 37s, but it's going to be really windy, and it's going to flare up the fires. So don't get your hopes up, Tim, is what I'm saying with the hot weather.
I'm still going to have hope.
Yeah,
There's
well,
always.
let's see. I'm going to remember these predictions. I'm really interested in seeing what happens. Yeah.
Now, remember, make sure if you haven't already subscribed to the Theorists YouTube channel, you do, and click the bell to enable notifications. Make sure you give a like and comment down below because it helps our channel be seen. We are backing everything up on Odyssey and Rumble just in case YouTube doesn't like what we're saying. But last week's show held up pretty well.
Yeah, and I've got my BitChute channel, Andy Nolch, and my Telegram channel, Andy Nolch. I actually started I'm going to start a new Twitter or X channel or whatever, because maybe this
X marks the spots. Elon
Yes,
Musk, he said that now that he wants his X brand to dominate the world. He basically wants to take on the World Economic Forum. I'm going to be the future.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and maybe this new platform, if you start an account on it, it won't be shadow banned. So that's why I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to get back on X. I wonder if they'll call Twitter Blue now Triple X.
I would if I was running the channel. Anyway, we should wrap this up. Went a little bit longer than what I thought would go, but that's good. We covered a lot of stuff. I'm surprised.
Yeah, and we'll be back again next week on the same channels, 9 p.m. Melbourne time, for another Theorists. Good night, everybody. And thank you again for watching and all your contributions in the chat. Yes, we should salute while we can.
So, yeah.
Can either believe it or they cannot believe it. I don't give two